tu ketawa terlalu banyak sangat.
Cikgu?
Coba sekarang Pak Abu pula.
Yang mana?
Yang ini.
Oh, ini saya kenal, saya tahu ni huruf ini. Bukan huruf M.
Itulah. Jangan suka selalu ketawakan orang.
Cikgu?
Yang ini bukan huruf M. Yang ini huruf H.
Huruf H?
Informal education applies indirectly in daily life. Children have to help parents in various tasks, either in the garden or at home. In the meantime, they learn the skills of making or repairing agriculture tools from parents and older villagers. In the process of teaching and learning informal education, the Malay parents use several methods to improve and correct the error done by their children. It is said that there are two levels. At stage 1, at this stage, during the socialization process, children are usually scolded, reprimanded, fined, and told to promise not to repeat the mistakes that have been made. Okay. In this case, beating the child is not intended to hurt them, but as a lesson or memory so that they do not commit the same mistake over and over again. In accordance with their growing age as well as physical changes or maturity, parents no longer use the method or approach in the first method. Instead, parents use diplomacy by giving advice and reprimand well. Parents, on the other hand, will be and observe on all the behavior and activities of their children, as well as ensure that their children have made a complete preparation to face the real age of adults. For example, work and establish a household, in addition to not tarnishing the good name of parents or family. By Medicine, the community of the past before the introduction of compulsory school system shows the childhood of young Malay, whether man or woman, have a different life experience route. For boys, they reach the age of 6 or 7, they have to learn to recite the Quran and study religion to finish the Quran as supply to face maturity. Instead, childhood Malay girls are very short term, namely when they reach the age of about 5 or 6 years old. She is expected by his mothers cooking, cleaning, and house and washing clothes. Further development shows how customs define children's socialization to include everyday skills that need to be learned. Further knowledge in that the young people will learn the knowledge of equipping themselves, such as the knowledge of sailing and material arts. Well, the girls will be increased the knowledge and skills with weaving and sewing. However, a girl who is old enough and puberty will make the girl's moment will be blocked if she is outside the house. It will be taught to be polite, gentle, in accordance with the character of a girl. For her to find her husband will be also decided by both parents. Instead, describe the Malay century have some kind of things about their education. There is some type of training for boys and girls, such as learning how to catch fish, trap animals, farm, weave, and cook from their parents.
The quality of the original religious education gradually improved in line with the Islamization of Malay society. The first educational facilities were established through the efforts of religious scholars of various degrees who accompanied Muslim traders over the centuries. These distinguished scholars were welcomed both by palace and aristocratic circles and also by common people. The traditional education in Malaya was explicitly imparted at surau, mosques, and additionally in the home of the imam. Occasionally, homes of these distinguished people were also used as centers to impart the traditional form of schooling. Arabic and Quranic exegesis were introduced to the younger generation, particularly through rote learning. Since the syllabus was mainly limited to the teaching of the Quran, this educational activity was referred to as Quran school or Quran class. In addition, the students were taught a little Malay later after they had learned to read and to write the Quran in Arabic. In some regions of Malaya, formal education was indeed conducted in traditional religious seminaries called pondok, where the daily life of the students was organized wholly around teaching and practice. It might be useful to refer to the pondok system as the core source of Malay moral culture, containing not only religious texts but also contain classical Malay literature. Traditional religious education was conducted at pondok over several generations. Sociologically, traditional religious education was in line with the basic needs of the people in the rural areas. Taking into consideration the fact that the traditional life followed a rustic and pastoral pattern, each village had a religious institution of some kind within its milieu. And it is not exceptional to say that each young boy, starting from the age of 6, could attend the local Quran classes. It might be assumed that those pupils with abilities and talent could continue their studies in some distinguished pondok where they could further their education. In addition, students were taught how to write in the Jawi script, which is Malay written in the Arabic alphabets. There is a possibility that the teaching of the Malay language was also in the curriculum. Both foreign ulama and the native religious scholastic cadre took part in the teaching process. They were able to establish a system of teaching several religious subjects, among which learning how to recite the Quran was the prime focus, generation after generation. Conversely, there appears to be no lay school of any kind, whether run by private individuals or under the Sultanate's administration in the pre-colonial era. Even though there is a scant information regarding the curriculum of these traditional schools, it is known that the most salient aspect of the curriculum was, in fact, the teaching of the basic tenets of Islam. It is assumed, however, that the syllabus included the composition of the basic forms of Islamic education conducted by following some Malay works such as Masail al-Muhtadi and some others, in addition to the Arabic language and grammar, calligraphy, rote learning of the Quran, Hadith, fiqh, and some classical novels called hikayat relating to history and literature. Munshi Abdullah acquaints us with some aspects of traditional religious education in his hikayat. According to him, some capable women taught not only Islamic courses such as the Quran, but also the Malay language and some texts from Malay manuscripts to the village girls and boys.
So my friend has explained about school, about the traditional education. I guess some of you must be very confused about is there any requirement, because he says if you're going to the college, if you're going to the university, we have requirements needed, right? So if back in the days, if the person interested in learning in pondok, actually they can just go. There is no requirement needed. There is no certain limit at gender or age or specific or talent skill that you must to have to go through or to get into the pondok. But except these two things, which is you need to know to read in Jawi, and also you need to know to read Al-Quran. Okay, another special thesis here is every person has a right to learn in pondok. Either you're a woman, you are a man, you're old, or you are young, there's no limit. Other than that is there are no tuition fees monthly or annually. It's free. Learning actually depends on the ability of the students. The maximum they can give is 10 years, and the minimum they can give is only 2 years. Most of the instructors are from Patani, Mecca, and Egypt. Though they don't have any certificate from a university, or they doesn't have a degree, for example, but they actually have a really wide knowledge on religious or Islamic knowledge, worship, and a very high morals. The highest authority, or more likely like a principal in pondok, is actually are called as Tok Guru. They are the driving force for the continuity. So to make sure everything is in the right place, everything is in the good condition. So each pondok is actually has its own curriculum. Different pondok has a different curriculum. They have a similarities, which is the subject Akidah, Ibadah, and Akhlak. Okay, for the conclusion, basically pondok is actually the oldest educational. However, there is no evidence, the clear record that state the actual date of the existence of the institution.
Palace education. According to the Malay history, early in 15th century, Islamic studies began to be studied by the palace or royalty, which means the people in the palace. So, the Sultan usually will provide a room that allows the teaching to be conducted. So, the religious teachers that are going to teach the Islamic studies will have to translate the Arabic books into Malay by using Jawi letters. They will teach using Malay because most of the Arabic books have already translated into Malay. But do not worry, they will also teach the Arabic language. So, palace is the earliest place where the Islamic studies began to be delivered, as well as a place for discussion of knowledge. As example, knowledge in Malay literature book, which is Malay history. And then they also make copies of others book, which is Amir Hamzah book, and Hikayat Muhammad Al-Hanafiah, and also Hikayat Iskandar Zulkarnain. And then there is this one time that Sultan Alauddin, which is Sultan Malacca, once make the palace as a place where the teaching is to be conducted, where the people to gain knowledge. And then there is also Sultan Mansur once invited an ulama to teach the knowledge, including tasawwuf, which is mysticism. The Malacca's government encouraged the people to pay close attention toward the Islamic studies as well as their involvement. As an example, Sultan Muhammad Shah celebrate the upcoming month of Ramadan. He glorified the month, especially in the night of 27 and also during the Tarawih prayer with his people in the mosque. After all of that, the Islamic study system at the moment is reciting Al-Quran as the main lesson towards every society, even though it's not formal yet. Soon after, they introduced Jawi letters to ease the local residents when to learn Arab when reciting Al-Quran, because Al-Quran is in Arab letters. So, at first, the reciting Al-Quran class was conducted in the teacher's house. And after many students has joined, they moved from the teacher's house to the surau and then to the mosque. Other than reciting Al-Quran as the main lesson, Islamic studies begin to expand, and then there are new studies which are knowledge of fiqh, tawhid, interpretation, history, mysticism, and Islamic philosophy as their curriculum.
Okay, what is Penglipulara? Okay, so why is Penglipulara has relation with traditional education? Okay, I will explain further. Okay, Penglipulara is actually another word, is a storyteller. Okay, back in the traditional in Malaysian, Penglipulara is way many centuries ago, because during that time they don't call a storyteller. Penglipulara tell stories, legends or everything to all the people around the world, or maybe to all the people surrounding him or her, that he will storytelling to people about these legends or facts or anything that attracts listeners. What can Penglipulara do? Okay, first, he attracts many listeners. Second, he retells the story, which is passed down from one generation to another. And then various type of stories contains values, influence behavior of the listener. So I will explain about this. Once upon a time, a skilled narrator was known as a Penglipulara. Okay, what is Penglipulara? A storyteller. Okay, he was able to tell stories and managed to attract many listeners, but many of them are illiterate. Okay, so therefore their stories are only told in writing. But in Malay, as I know story, Penglipulara is like more to storytelling, which is more to vocal or oral storytelling or oral story. Penglipulara gets a collection of stories from his parents and he retells them to his children or other children, or maybe other people from outside that interested listen to all his stories. Okay, in this way, the stories are passed down from one generation to another generation, like I said earlier, which is example like from my side, as I recall when I was young or child, around 10 years old, I think my grandmother is a Penglipulara. Why? Because during my young, I always stay with her, and then she always tells me about legends, about Masuri, about Putri Gunung Ledang. I'm more interested with our traditions, okay, or with our kind of legends. There are many various type of stories. Like I said, some tell the story of kings, famous warriors, and animals. So fairy tales also include, but the elements are incorporated into some of the stories. In addition, the assumption of pure values into the stories aim to influence the behavior of the listener. So as a listener, during my time back young, or maybe during school, as a listener, yes, my teacher do storytelling. So we will listen about the story, and then the morals value in the end caught my attention lah. Why is she telling this story? Because the moral values in the end evolve everything, means like make sense. Example about greedy. Don't be greedy to someone, because it will come back to you. The world is round. When you are up, sometimes you can be down. Okay. So that is about a penglipur lara. As for me, penglipur lara is an influencer. Ta-da! That's all from me, and thank you.
Angin menderu,